Well, thank you very much. So good evening, everyone. Since morning, I have attended multiple fireside chat. One thing which was common was it was all about building, building capabilities, building new practices, technology. This session is contrast. It's about breaking. Yeah, so we will be focusing on breaking some of the practices, norms, which are currently working all fine, yeah, but is it really relevant for the future? So the essence of the discussion is more around disruption as well as the leadership. So we all know, yeah, so it's important to disrupt yourself before you get disrupted. And in that context, the role of the leader is not just to adopt a change, but to actually challenge the status quo and drive and lead that change. So that's the conversation, and it's a great pleasure to have two seasoned leaders, Rajat and Praveen. So we will be diving into these topics, and they have rewritten the rules in their own leadership playbook multiple times, so let's really learn from them. So my first question, which is common to both of you, so how do you really define disruption in the context of your industry? Yeah, so we have telecom industry, we have banking industry represented here, and how does it really influences your own leadership approach? So Rajat, maybe we start with you.
Sure. When you talk about disruption, disruption is about obviously breaking the conventional rule or rewriting the rules, and it's about either how you reach out to the customer or how do you actually, disrupt the existing products and services. Now, technology over a period of time has obviously disrupted many more industries. To just give you a couple of examples, music industry, when we talk about, today we all talk about online subscription and no longer talk about CDs and DVDs and those kind of stuff. And typically industries are disrupted by not necessarily players within the industry. Like music industry is more Spotify and YouTube rather than the conventional music players. And similarly, if you look at smartwatches, it was not disrupted by any of the watchmakers. It was more disrupted by an Apple and a Samsung kind of people. Now, when I come to the telecom industry that I represent, or the high-tech industry, GenAI is actually rewriting the rules of the game for the industry also. I'll give you one example. We always keep talking about, software as a service, but now obviously there is a different model is evolving, which is service as a software. And for example, we are enabling service as a software model for one of our telecom, clients in the Middle East. Setting up this GPU farms and, configuring the LLMs and actually implementing one of the products that we have. And this has enabled them to obviously use GenAI capabilities internally, but also offer this as a solution, a GenAI thing to actually customers that they have in the region.
Got it. So it's more about scaling that service and
scaling,
going towards
yeah.
No, fantastic. Praveen, how's it in banking?
Yeah, sure. So look, when I talk about disruption, I sort of think about it in two levels, right? One, I think, is the industry evolution, and most industries are getting disrupted by technology, and most of those disruptions are originating from tech change. But also, I think there is the macro disruption right now, which is, for example, the pandemic or the volatility we had on the Liberation Day, or whatever the reasons are. As an industry, as an organization, we got to be able to respond to that. Because, for example, on 2nd April, we had massive volatility in the market, and, and we got to be prepared to deal with it. So I think as a leader, it's about leadership agility and, to deal with disruptions where, some might need more situational leadership, which is here and now, which is short term, and some where you have a little bit of time to respond. For example, there are startups coming in, enabling at our heels. There are peers who might be better at execution, where we can actually lay out a strategic roadmap and sort of respond to those disruptions in a much more thoughtful way. So while there is the long term, but there is no long term without the short term. So you got to balance both and be able to respond to macro disruptions which happen or which could happen at any point. As a fully owned sort of, we are, as Barclays, we got to be relevant to the global organization. and therefore we got to be able to respond to anything that's impacting the global organization at any point in time.
No, fair enough. So it's more about being prepared for whatever eventualities might hit you. So on one side, of course, you're exploring what's the long-term proposition, but short-term, you have to manage the situation. So it'll be great to get an example from you, right? Because as a leader, when you get into such kind of crisis or an opportunity situation, either case, how do you rewrite the entire practice, right? So sometimes, yeah, it's a conventional norm. You would have responded as per past experience, but the world is so dynamic. It just requires you to rethink, refresh your thinking itself. So can you give an example of that?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think at the sort of underlying all of change that you want to drive is your own familiarity and ability to absorb whether it's new technology or whatever the change is, right? Understanding that, but I think at times your ability to flex your leadership style. So for example, when pandemic happened, right, 50% of our organization, I'm sure many of us in the room faced a similar challenge. 50% people didn't have devices to connect from home, and and the lockdown was like looming 2 days from there, right? So literally overnight, we were able to get devices in hands of people, within like 2 weeks from there. A lot of, approvals, whatever else, but everything on the phone, and you got to like be much more directive about what you need to do because you got to keep the organization running. So that's kind of one scenario, right? The other, I think, if you look at the recent past, I think AI and GenAI particularly disrupting pretty much everything that we do. We got to be prepared, and we can't, miss the boat, so to say, right? So, and have plenty of use cases in the mix where we are actually trying out different things. So I think just letting, so to say, 1,000 flowers bloom, letting that organization sort of come up with various ideas, taking them to some level of maturity before you sort of put the blinkers and start putting guardrails on what will eventually go into production, and letting that innovative and creative side of the organization, giving space for that to happen as well. I think that's important.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. So Rajat, an example from you. Side.
I'll give you a different context. Initially, like all GCCs, and in fact, I should say most of the GCCs, we also started with, getting packets of work from our headquarters, and it was mostly service delivery or lower end operational work, and it was typically that parent headquarter and Indian GCC kind of a thing, parent-child relationship and those kind of stuff. It took us lots of effort and a very focused strategy over a period of time to make sure that we actually, convert this relationship more into a seamless integration into the global organization. We are today vertically integrated into the global organization, and we don't have this issue of, there's a parent headquarter and there is a Indian GCC which is acting differently. Obviously, we have gone over the maturity curve. What we did was when we, we took some conscious efforts and calls there. We did not build our India GCC with one unit, major unit in India. We basically tried to make sure that we have representation across units. Even when we started small, the idea was each of the senior leaders in the company should experience India and should be invested in India. Over a period of time, as we scaled, we made sure that we keep getting, as I said, all organization unit, right from product, R&D, delivery, SI services, operation, corporate units, and all those kind of stuff. And over a time, we started getting quality, and moving up the value chain. In fact, what we also did was, over a period of time, identified location-agnostic niche roles that we can bring to India and make sure that we are, getting global roles also. So, which actually, broke that whole parent HQ and India GCC kind of a scenario.
Yeah, so it's very interesting as you share, right? Because we have also seen the disruption in the entire concept of GCC, right? I know, of course, we started off with cost to talent to the capability play. Today we are discussing that should we internally even call ourselves as a GCC, right? And the more I talk to my peers, none of them associate ourselves internally with the GCC term. I mean, for the industry, for these conferences, it's great to represent as a body. But let me actually extend this topic, right? So as we have actually evolved in the GCC journey, and this is industry agnostic, yeah, which applies to all of us, we have disrupted our own approach, right, at every phase, as I said, from cost to talent to the capability play that we are in right now. So what's a practice, yeah, which is successful right now, but may not be relevant in the future? So it's important for us to disrupt. So if you both can actually share an idea, thought of like a current practice, which definitely we need to disrupt, otherwise, we will not be able to move to the next evolution cycle of, our enterprise. Rajat?
So I don't know whether it will be disrupted in the future or not, but I believe given the quantity and quality of talent in India, we should actually be delivering to the business results of the company and not really catering to only the headquarter kind of a scenario. For that, we need to think very, very differently. We need to make sure, and this is what we did at least, we started investing in our middle level management layer. And this is industry agnostic from my perspective. We definitely, obviously, cost and talent quality does seem to be parameter, but you can obviously move the value chain upwards. For example, I was talking about the niche skills. So we started identifying niche skills and domain knowledge, which is critical for the company's growth overall. So we actually started mapping roles which are location agnostic, senior roles that can be brought, backfilled from India, and so on and so forth. So what it did was, over a period of time, we were actually able to, and so now, over a medium period of time, it's not a very short-term kind of a scenario, we were able to make sure that we have quality roles, niche roles, and we have domain knowledge. And this is what it did. We got roles, niche roles, like just to give you an example, solution architect, product owners, program managers, business analyst, so that we started getting end-to-end work. So how we groomed our middle-level management is by making sure that they get cross-site exposure, they got cross-unit exposure. They were also, we worked on their leadership skills, their networking, getting senior roles to India, and also getting them mentored by senior leaders across the company. So that's what we did. And on the other side, we worked on to get management buy-in to make sure that we are able to deliver end-to-end here. And depending on the size, we are pretty decent size in India, actually one of the biggest site of Amdocs that we have, and a very substantial presence of employees here. We basically got the management buy-in to make sure that we are, the leadership layer is proportionate to the size that we have. And we reduce the remote management that we, have. And I can say we created senior leadership roles here. We also mapped, as I said, location agnostic role and backfilled from India. As a result, today we have lots of people in India doing global roles. I mean, for myself, I head Amdocs India, I head Amdocs Cyprus, I have responsibility for global operations worldwide for Amdocs, which is 80 countries, and I also lead the site strategy for Amdocs. My colleague today leads the entire service delivery and managed services sitting out of India. We have more than 25 VPs who actually have global roles and global teams.
Yeah, no, I think I really like your point. So firstly, from a mindset and approach perspective, it's more about playing the role of an enterprise leader, right? Yes. So don't get driven by the internal metrics of how the GCC is operating, but how the value is getting generated, what is the business impact or outcomes, and that has to be in direct relation to the headquarters priorities, right? I think that's how the global locations operate.
Exactly.
Right? No, great. So Praveen, any successful practice you would like to disrupt?
Yeah, look, I think just to add to what Rajat mentioned, I think all of that, but I think the most important in my mind, at least, has been just outcome orientation. Just getting people to understand that, at the end of the day, the business doesn't move forward unless the customer outcomes are the right outcomes, right? So I think getting leadership in India to understand what those outcomes are and not get caught up in a cottage industry of random metrics, which, nobody's really interested in. So I think that, to me, is a serious pivot where, what are the outcomes that really the business is bothered about? If it's consumer bank, it's much more customer outcomes. If it's the investment bank, it's much more your STP rates and your, how do you deal with volumes and so on, and getting alignment on those metrics and making sure that we are delivering to things which really matter. So that's kind of, I think, super important.
No, I really like it, right? And I think in the backstage, we were also discussing about the customer experience centers or scenarios that you actually create. Because sometimes, I mean, I will call it a bit offshore, yeah, if not GCC. Your proximity to the client or the local markets where your business operate, there's always a gap, right? And now the question is, how can we be more proactive in filling in those gaps and accelerate the learning of people who are actually joining our organization? I think I really like
and
that.
we were talking about it, right?
Yeah.
And some of the practices that we have done, for example, on our consumer end of the spectrum, right? Our people are building applications, digital banking, and so on, right? But they can't really experience what they are doing because we as Barclays are not present in the local market, right, as a bank. So, we've created a customer experience center. People can go there and see what how the journey, the customer journey actually hangs together. And actually, and that's actually led to people contributing way more than the specific area that they might be working on. Because now they can look at the end-to-end journey and actually based on their experience with the local banks that they are banking with, they have 100 ideas which, which come up as that, why are we doing it like this and why not in a better way? And that's actually led to a lot more ideation and contribution from people in terms of, how we can make the organization better.
So one of the message definitely is that leaders need to be proactive, anticipate, and trigger the change on their own, right? Now the question is, how do you get to know it's time to break the existing practice, right? So Rajat, my question to you would be, what's the indicator or signal you get that you think it's time to refresh my thinking, I have to do something different now, because this practice will not continue and take me to the future?
See, typically at the start of the GCC journey, we are all made by the internal parameters. The internal parameters, something like project timelines or headcount growth numbers or, faster release cycle or reduction in defects and so on and so forth. Over a period of time, I assume we need to move, and as Praveen was rightly saying, we need to move to, be impacting the organization results, be it top line, bottom line, cash flows, or actually, in fact, contribute to the end customer, metrics. For example, faster time to market or, churn rate or retention rate. I'm talking from a telecom sector perspective or net promoter score kind of a scenario. This is actually, if we are not actually evolving on that path and not moving up this particular value chain in the organization, we need to relook at our strategy. We need to relook at what we are doing so that we are actually more closer to the customer and delivering customer value and experience. And secondly, as I spoke about domain knowledge and niche, we are talking about end-to-end accountability and responsibility coming to the GCC. Now, if that is also not happening, we need to relook at the strategy. We obviously start from cost and talent, but we need to move up the value chain. And the other thing I'll say is, as GCCs, we also need to make sure that we map what is the priority for the company in terms of the growth. And we need to create center of excellence in GCCs to make sure that we are supporting that particular thing, be it GenAI or cloud or whatever. But we need to make sure that we look at the strategic priorities of the company and build COEs in GCCs.
Yeah. No, thank you. So we have now said that, okay, there's a disruption happening. Yeah. Now we've got the indicators that it's time to rewrite the script, right? Now the question is the readiness of our leadership team, right? So Praveen, my question to you would be, what best captures that you become confident, you have a conviction that the leadership team, is ready to take a plunge, is bold, is courageous, is proactive, and ready to drive it. So what gives you that confidence?
Look, I think, first of all, just dwelling on the, when is the time right to take the plunge, and then do you have the right leadership, to take that plunge? I think first, I would say that, make a distinction between the what and how. So the what is like, what is the organization trying to achieve? That I think is globally consistent. The how, there's a lot more flexibility in how you want to go there. And, if you have a better way of accelerating execution, then I think to that extent, there's a lot more leeway to actually do things differently. So for example, to just translate that into sort of real world, if you want to bring operations, technology, product, business, front to back, everything together, you can experiment with that and cut through those silos, have a unified leadership structure, and we experimented that in a few areas, and that led to a substantial acceleration of outcomes. So that I think is, and the second thing I would say is that don't try to boil the ocean, right? So there's a large organization, a third of Barclays is now in India, so you can't, change everything at the same time. You got to create a few wins. You got to start a revolution on the side that, prove that that is working, there's some success there, and then the rest of the organization will over time pivot there. So I think that's how I would say that create that momentum by building success in a specific area.
Success is infectious, right? No, fair enough. So we have 5 minutes, and I have to fire 2-3 questions to both of you. So we have to talk about people and culture, right? So Rajat, my question to you, also given Amdocs is a product tech organization, technology keeps on evolving, and for employees, they need to always rescale, upscale, otherwise they become obsolete, right? So the question is that when we talk about rewriting the rule, how does it apply from building the future talent pipeline?
See, first of all, obviously we need to realize that one size does not fill all, and I think most of the companies do realize, and most of the companies have good internal and external platforms for learning. I think the differentiator is, can you help employees custom design their own career path? For us, we are using a platform called eightfold.ai, where people can actually define their own career path and look at what future roles they want to do, and link with the the learning system that allows them to actually see what are the skills they require to take up the future roles, and what are the courses they should do. Obviously, we have practices across, right from graduate level to senior leadership level. Senior leadership level, obviously looking at the strategy and what the company growth strategy should be, or how do we, as Amdocs India, contribute to the overall business results. And at graduate level, we are actually making them industry ready even before they part of the college. We typically recruit 800 to 1,000 people each year. And we also make sure that they learn the best practices, clean code or GenAI ethics and all those kind of stuff that we do. So we actually make sure that at each level we are looking at their role, the technology focus, and the level that they have, and we have customized programs at each of these levels that we have. One interesting point I wanted to bring is, just because the organization is innovative, that doesn't necessarily translate to, innovative employees. You need to invest in that. And we are consciously investing in that particular thing. I'll give you a few examples of that. It's a mindset that needs to change, and people need to understand it's not about only new products or new services or solution. It's about everyday processes. It's about looking at problem with empathy. It's about reimagining the customer value that we want to provide. For example, when I say we recruit 800 to 1,000 freshers each year, what we do is we actually create something called an ICE fair, which is Innovation Creative Environment Fair, where we tell them, please come and present any innovative idea or project that you did in your college. Not all of them are relevant to Amdocs. The idea is to give them a message that, guys, innovation is important to us. And we are more than happy to look at, we also reward behaviors in terms of, if they show innovator DNA, which is typically your, 5 DNAs that we have: associating, questioning, observing, networking, and experimenting. So we reward those. We obviously has created an army of employee volunteers to become innovation agents and enthusiasts, and obviously lots of thought leadership sessions and things going on there.
Sure. No, thank you very much. So Praveen, very quickly on the culture. So how do you actually foster this culture on the mindset, right, of challenging the status quo, drive innovation?
Yeah, no, I think, look, we do a variety of things, which is, for example, I'll start by just sort of, the T-shaped mindset, which is essentially, ensuring that everyone understands what is their deep area of expertise, but have a broader understanding of the business and the, the specific function they are operating in, making sure that people understand that and appreciate that, running those sessions. I think having a little bit more of what I call as field and forum type approach, where, you're taking some sort of structured learning, but then also you're then having an opportunity to apply those, so that, you can actually then sort of imbibe those rather than losing it, right, just with the classroom learning. And then, of course, there's the usual ideation forums, hackathons, et cetera, and giving some, setting aside some money and some budget to run forums like we run something called a big challenge, etc., right, where people can come up with their own ideas, and actually we can fund it so that they actually go into production. So, people can see that actually these are grassroots ideas. They might not be the most earth-shaking sort of next generation type ideas, but they make the organization better. And therefore, we are able to actually fast track execution on those. So combination of those, I think, helps in creating that positivity that, here's an organization that will listen to us and is focused on reducing friction in whatever we do.
No, brilliant. So I still want a line or two, maybe my last question to you all. So any advice you would like to give to all of us, to build something better for the future, more from your own leadership approach experience?
Yeah, okay, so look, I mean, from my side, I think, the world's a lot of change in the world. I think all of us are living through, be it tech-driven change or even just macro headwinds. I think leadership agility and your ability to flex to whatever the demands that the external world is putting on us, and ensuring that the entity that you lead and you're part of stays relevant to the global organization. I think that's super important.
Great, thank you.
From my perspective, I'll say have a long-term strategy as a GCC, plan it and execute on it. Making a change in a big multinational, which is a complex organized structure, is a marathon, it is not a sprint. Also focus on quality, not quantity. Beyond a particular point, like we have grown to a big size, we are more than almost 15,000 people in India. The limits in terms of what is the concentration risk and all those kind of things start coming in. So focus on quality rather than quantity, and try to get high quality work rather than getting low operational work beyond a certain amount of point of time. Because once you focus on quality, quantity will follow. So we need to also start looking at what work and quality of work that we are getting to India. And as I said, you build niche skills, which are priority for the company and long term. And lastly, I'll say the goal is not to just go along with what is happening. Try to see, how can you trigger a change with right intent and clarity.
No, fantastic. So brilliant conversation. Thank you both, and thanks everyone. So if you have questions, of course you can route it to us offline. But thank you everyone.